You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Hi, I'm Mitch.
And I'm Davey.
And we are
the Bargain Bin Gamers. It just gets worse every time.
That was take two. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they don't need to know that. Don't look behind the curtain, all right? There's nothing going on here. This is the podcast, YouTube show, and Twitch stream where we play the cheapest and not always shittest games out there.
So you don't have to. Or, you know, in this case, maybe you do want to.
Yeah, in fact, more and more we're thinking that you might want to.
Yeah, we're going to change that.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't like this intro anymore. And hopefully we find a few
hidden gems along the way.
Yeah, and I'm surprised you can remember the script. What time did you get home and go to bed last night?
We don't need to talk about that. I actually technically went home at an appropriate hour because we had daylight savings and it went back 1 hour.
Oh, so you mean you got to someone else's home at an appropriate hour?
No, I attended my home with someone, but technically I left at 4, but it was technically 3 o'clock. So
okay, yeah, fair enough. Well, look, well done for being here. I'm proud of you.
You too.
Yeah, okay.
You had a lot on last night.
So. I did. You want to know what I did last night? Well, this one was out till 3 a.m. I laid on my couch under the doona with my dog and my fiance sampling wedding cake.
And that's what happens when you get to 40.
41.
My apologies. I was trying to young you down, but anyway.
It was good wedding cake. You had a bit of that this morning.
It was actually delicious. Really good for a hangover.
So. Yeah. Except I had it after having a big Greek lunch, and I remember whatever the last slice was, I was so over eating cake that I'm like, whatever this flavor is, I hate it and I don't want it at my wedding.
Not happening.
No. Look, anyway, before we begin, we would just like to give a big shout out to all of our BQN Podcast Network patrons, especially to this show's associate producer,
Sam Johnson.
Thank you so much, Sam, and all of our network patrons for your continued financial support of the network. You will never hear an ad on any of our podcasts because our wonderful network patrons help keep it free for you.
Mm-hmm. You can subscribe for as little as $1 a month, by the way.
$1 if you are in the USD, about $2 if you are in the AUD.
$3.50 if you include the tariff.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to persist with that joke, are we?
Yes, we will continue.
Okay, we'll continue with that joke. Great. So excited about that. But yes, you can head over to patreon.com/BQN to find out more. We've been posting lots of fun stuff over on the BQN Patreon page, haven't we?
Anything to do with us is always fun. I hope you know.
I think it's just us at the moment. Everyone's like, who are these
We're
guys?
keeping the lights on.
We are keeping the lights on. Well, hey, how's your week been in general?
Week's been pretty good. Pretty busy. Work. Weekend's been super busy, very social. Had a nice little night out last night. Just been keeping out of trouble. And then I was in trouble last night. So.
You were in trouble.
How was your week?
My week was good. I've been sick.
Yeah, you were sick.
Yeah, Anthony and I both got sick. Well, Anthony first, then, as a primary school teacher, brought home whatever germs those kids have and gave it to me. So then I was sort of sick towards the tail end of the week. But, I think I'm okay now.
Hopefully you're so skinny now as well.
Oh. Well, thanks for telling everyone what I had.
Guess you're all playing at home.
Deary me. We're just letting it all out here on the Bargain Bin Gamer today. No, it was good though. It gave me a good opportunity. I've been playing Xenoblade Chronicles X, the definitive edition on the Switch, which is a very deep, involved RPG, and obviously gave me lots of time to geek out over all the Switch 2 announcements that happened this week.
Yeah, speaking of, that's actually what I did during the week. I've been hustling to see if someone will buy me a Switch 2.
Is that what you were doing till 3 a.m. last night?
No, I wish. I was just doing that for free like an idiot.
Yeah. Anyway, let's not get into the controversy of the Switch 2 and its pricing right now because we have got something really, really special today. We've got a special guest.
Very special guest.
We've got a special guest. Who's our special guest?
It's the fantastic gaming poet,
Gaming poet. There you go.
I don't know, poet gamer.
Poet gamer.
Well, perhaps we'll ask. We have a very special guest on today, Rae White, who is a fantastic author, poet, game developer, an all-round icon.
And zinester, and I want to find out what that is.
Yeah, that's something I don't even know. So I'm excited to figure that out.
Oh, look, let's bring them in because I can see them absolutely losing it in the StreamYard waiting room. Hey, Rae, how are you?
Hello. It's so
I'm
good to be here.
sorry you had to sit there and suffer in silence through that. I did warn you before we hit record.
Very true.
It was relatable content. I feel like last night I was the person like in bed, not trying wedding cake, but just like, chilling. And I'm just like, yeah, this is 39. Just being real tired.
Yeah. Trust me, at 41, I can tell you it doesn't get much better.
It's okay. 27, I'm borderline at that point as well. Like, I'm ready to start, like, hiding in bed.
He says that, though, Rae, but, like, he messages me this morning knowing that we had the podcast on, and I was like, oh, are you okay? And he's like, oh, just a small one. I got home at 3 a.m. And I'm like, are you for real? Like,
And I'm fine. I'm fresh to daisy.
A small one is like in bed by 9.
Yeah.
Like,
a small one for me was having wedding cake under the doona with the dog.
One glass of red, and you're like, oh my God. Right.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just I've got a little bit of your bio here because you've done quite a lot. So you're and taking this from your itch page, right? So Rae White is the non-binary transgender writer, educator, and zine maker. Now, is it zine or zine? Zine. Okay.
Zine. Yeah, short for magazine.
Oh.
Yep.
There we go. I was figuring out
right?
that. Poet, you've got 2 poetry collections. You've got Milk Teeth, and you've also got Exactly As I Am, which I have a copy of here. Thank you, St Kilda Library. Milk Teeth has won awards, the 2017 Arts Queensland Thomas Shapcott Poetry Prize.
Mm-hmm.
Poetry prizes and literary awards never have short titles.
Yeah.
So
I think that might be the nature of the beast, of being a poetry award.
Yeah.
Right.
And was also shortlisted.
You got
Exactly. But was also shortlisted for the 2019 Victorian Premier's Literary Award and commended in the 2018 Anne Elder Award.
Wow.
And then your second poetry collection, Exactly As I Am, from 2022. I must admit, I've read a bit of it, 2022. There's a feeling of some of this was written during COVID.
Oh, I literally, I think like during COVID, I like lockdown, I was like, well, I'm bored. And I like wrote 2 books and I was like,
what am I going to do with this?
I was so bored. And then I was like, who wants this?
Yeah, there are some interesting
Exactly
time capsule pieces in there. There was one, I cannot quite remember the name of it, but I was like, this literally sounds like buying a pot plant at Bunnings during lockdown.
Yes.
You know which one I'm talking about? Yeah.
I know the exact one, yes, because I think that references like an Eagles song, and we had to make sure that it didn't reference
Yes,
it too much.
it's the QR code one. I think it's called QR code. Yeah.
That's it,
Well,
yeah.
that's very of the time.
I was like,
Yeah.
right? What's a QR code now?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, at least I don't have to check into buildings anymore.
they had their moment.
And look, and that collection has done really, really well, as you were obviously aware, but for our listeners and viewers. So that was also shortlisted in 2023 for the Prime Minister's Literary Award. Really, really cool. And the Judith Wright Calente Award in the Queensland Literary Awards. So congratulations on those. Super exciting.
Thank you.
But, I mean, obviously, this is the Bargain Bin Gamer. We are all about gaming. And I found you, Rae, through your recognition in 2 recent festivals. Last year's Melbourne Queer Gaming Festival and the Pride at Play exhibition from 2023, where your bitsy poem games, Stand Up and Queer Picnic were shortlisted and featured, which was really, really exciting. Tell us, what made you turn your love of poetry into game developing and design? Because when I first found you, I'm just like, these are really, really cool. And I looked you up and I'm like, oh, games is just a very small subset of what you do.
Yeah, I think once again I think it stemmed from lockdown. Like there was these online workshops you could do in Bitsy and Twine, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll have a go. Yeah, I was like, why not? I'm extremely bored and underemployed. So yeah, I kind of like decided to, write some poetry and then kind of put that in a different space than like on the page or the stage. And yeah, that included Bitsy. And I think Bitsy is one of the ones that I really love to play around with because I feel like I discover something new each time. And it was really kind of interesting to map a story and a poem to. And yeah, since then I've done like a lot of game jams and that kind of thing because it almost feels like when I write something, whether it be like a poem or a book, like a full book or something, or a zine or a game or something, like I don't know, it's all part of the same thing. I feel like it's all poetry at the end of the day.
You mentioned that you use the Bitsy engine. Now, I came across that. It's a free engine on itch. Is that right?
Yes. It's on itch, and I think you can. It's in browser as well if you don't want to download it from memory. And yeah, it's so incredibly easy to use, and you can just kind of like mess around with it. And to be honest, you can't really break it. It's such a sweet little style. Like it feels because it's like that 8-bit kind of style. You feel like you're making kind of like a Tamagotchi or a Stardew, doing Stardew Valley or something. Like it's really cute.
Exactly
it's
that
adorable.
when I was playing the games. I was like, it's giving like Tamagotchi meets like Duck Hunt almost, or like something like very like cute and pixely. It was such a unique style, which lend itself very, I guess, very well to like the kind of story that was being told in those. With those,
Yeah.
to delve into them a little bit, the story behind those games, are they taken from real life? Are they a little bit of fiction? Like, how did they come about?
I feel like it's the same as like with poetry. A lot of the time it's like, I'll grab this little bit of fiction here and then this little bit of nonfiction and this experience that happened to me and then that one that happened to a friend and kind of like mold them all together. At the end of the day, though, like a lot of it, is the stuff that has happened to me and stuff. Yeah, because, stand up is like going through, kind of like the trans medicalization and like the system that we kind of find ourselves in terms of, trans healthcare, and then, the how incredible gender euphoria is, and, actually, being the person that you're meant to be. So it kind of, I always try to have my poem games, having like a kind of euphoric, joyous, positive kind of energy at the end.
So starting with stand up, so there's a different tone to the two games. And you're talking about the experience with the transgender experience and what that's like. And is that sort of so stand up's trying to depict that? Because it did feel there was a cold clinical side to it, but then there's an area where you're kind of walking through the hallway and the little blobs are kind of talking to you, and that's sort of the euphoric kind of part of it, right? So what I'm interested in with this though is because poetry invokes a particular experience for a lot of people, right? Because I'm gonna dub my wonderful co-host in here, right? When he was playing them, he said, "Are these? You said these are poetry games?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "They don't rhyme."
I'm so sorry. I'm not the most literary focused person in the world. So when I heard about the mean poetry games, I was like, I wonder if Ray's aware that these don't rhyme. They're very good, but like,
I'm like, they've published books, right?
Yeah, who
They
am
know
I?
what they're doing.
It was very interesting.
Oh my God. That is so delightful. Yeah, definitely like poetry as a rhyming thing is like, I used to be very like, oh, poetry shouldn't rhyme. I'm here about free verse and like expressing myself. But I do quite like, I've gone like full circle where I'm now like, no, rhyming is like a really great way of storytelling, and like song lyrics, you're able to like remember the words more easily. And so, yeah, I'm so here for rhyming, but no, the poems or the text in the games don't rhyme. I definitely did though, like I guess I call them poem games. I don't, maybe two reasons. One is like, I feel like, because for me, poetry is like about that kind of distilled language and everything being quite succinct and rich and stuff. Like that's part of like the language that I use. And also like when I write poetry on the page, I like to, really use the page space. So I did that kind of with Bitsy as well by like, there's like about partway through the game down the side in stand up is like written no, like that kind of like, and those sort of, really using space and that kind of thing. Also, I'm not sure if it's because I also think that everything is poetry or because maybe I'm like, oh no, I couldn't call myself a gamer or like a game maker. So maybe it's a poem game. So I'm like, oh, is it rooted in like how I feel about poetry or like, not feeling like I could call myself a game maker. I'm like,
Well, I mean, poetry can be such a deeply personal experience. I've studied, done a few poetry units at university, and received terrible feedback for what I thought was great work. But like,
I liked your work.
Thank you. Because when poetry really started to land with me at university, it was more because it was when I realized it didn't have to just be in that very strict form and structure. Because when you're first taught how to write poetry, that you're like, oh, you must adhere to the this stanza structure and everything, and then you get to see more of like what you've got in your book with like you've got your Magic 8-Ball poem where it's shaped like a little triangle, right? And it becomes more evocative, and it's more about sometimes it's more about just the words on a page. And I think that's what I got from playing stand up and especially stand up, because it's, and you can go and talk to people multiple times and you get different answers. But does everyone kind of get the poetry side to it? Because like I said, it wasn't until I specifically kind of realized just how poetry was very much your thing that's what these games were.
Because like one of the awards that, it was stand up one was like the Willara Digital Literary Award. So it's like digital but literary. So it was kind of like it had those two elements. But I think like a lot of people generally are like, this is a cool bitsy game, or oh, this is a cool art piece. And I'm like, you know what? It can be all those things. It can be whatever anyone wants it to be at the end of the day. I feel like it. Yeah, a lot of people maybe don't get the poetry element, but that's like, unless you're a bigot, all poetry is good poetry. And like, you said that, you didn't get like great grades in the poetry units. I'm like, no. Like, I feel like poetry is like, it's meant to be like written and felt and said and shared. And it doesn't have to be like the good and bad is like real straight talk to me. Like that's too straight. Like queerness means that like, poetry is expansive and stuff. This is my rant, is that everyone should be able to write poetry and can write poetry.
Especially your written poetry in your book that I have here, it really dips. It dips in and out of being. It can be dark, but then it can also be very dark humor and quite funny all at the same time. Not all poetry has to be for you. You know what I mean? I could love what I read in here and give the book to someone else and they won't get it, right?
Exactly. And like, I feel like it's so subjective, like same as, when we're talking about stand up, is like a lot of people will be like, oh my God, this is clearly a poem, or oh my God, this is clearly a game, or this is, whatever, like however they kind of vibe with it. And I'm like, that's art. I love it.
This is something that I wanted to pick your brain about specifically, because as a newbie to poetry who thinks it has to rhyme, I do love a haiku, by the way. But
amazing,
where did
love it.
Poetry come from for you? Was that always like a form of expression? Did you get into it and that was kind of like a gateway process, or like how did that start? How did your passion begin?
Yeah, I kind of like at school I was like, poetry, this is fine. And then I did like a writing degree at uni, and I was like, poetry, it's fine. And then I just didn't write for 10 years and just sort of gave up and was like, well, I'm clearly terrible. And, then I think I started reading poetry that was more queer and more trans, that I could like see myself in. And I was like, oh, this is what people are talking about. This is that poetry thing. And it was kind of like that connection. Like, if it had been someone else coming to poetry, it would have been another book that might have struck them or whatever. And so I was sort of got back into things and thought, well, I'll start writing. And just kind of smashed out a book. I feel like the 10 years I was coming out of my cage and I was like writing poetry. I was just like, yes, like I'm out of the closet. Let's go.
Let's go. Like obviously with your writing, it's obviously got like a massive queer lens. It obviously talks about like the trans experience. Did doing the poetry for you like assist you in that process of discovering your queerness and things like that?
Like at the time of like starting to write poetry that ended up being in like my first book, I was super queer and like super non-binary, but there was this kind of like I was still in like work mode, like super capitalist kind of agenda vibes, and I was in a job that I enjoyed, but it wasn't poetry, and then I was made redundant, and so it was kind of like it catapulted my writing and kind of my identity into a totally different sphere. So I was suddenly, I could express myself more because I was unemployed or underemployed. I felt like I could be more myself. And so it just kind of reinforced what I already knew, which was that I was, super queer and trans, and also I guess a poet at that stage. Like, but it definitely did like, I think writing poetry is like, is a catharsis and is kind of like, it's not every single time I write a poem. Like sometimes it's just, for kicks. But a lot of the time it is, it is catharsis, and it's not necessarily like, A to B kind of therapy. It's, it's writing around ideas. It's like not necessarily telling the truth, but not telling lies. And it's all it muddies things. There's lots of metaphors. There's, but it's also something that, at the end of the day, like I think it's art therapy. Like it does me good every time. And I'm often like, oh my God, I no longer have a headache. My crops are watered. Like, it's amazing.
You kind of spooked me as well because you just said capitalism, which reminded me of your poem, My Kink is Late Stage Capitalism. And now I'm like, oh my goodness, I've remembered that one.
That got both of us.
That got us.
I knew when I got the book from the library, and I flipped it open on the walk home, and that was the first poem I saw. And I'm like, Mitch is going to love this.
I loved it, by the way. That's my kind of poetry.
Amazing. See, that's, like, right? Like, that's the thing. It's like, poetry can be like so kind of, I don't know, say stiff and boring, but like, it can be, not for everyone.
Moving on to your second game. Well, I don't know if it's your second game, but it was the second bitsy game that got featured, which is how I found you through the Melbourne Queer Gaming Festival, which is Queer Picnic, which actually I played quite a while ago, and I think I actually reached out to you some time ago to do this interview, and we've finally got in contact. But tell us a bit about Queer Picnic and how that came to be. And you mentioned already there was a bit of inspiration behind just a lot of the queer people where you live just like to go on picnics. But what's the inspiration there? What's the poem behind that?
Yeah, I think definitely Queenslanders love a picnic. Love that for them. I do enjoy a picnic. Not all the time. But I definitely wanted to sort of invoke that kind of feeling, and also that, enthusiasm for when you see a queer event, come up online or something, or a friend tells you about it and you're like, am I queer enough? Is this for me? Like, is this okay? And then you go and you meet people and you're like, oh my God, these are my people. Or they might not be my people necessarily, but I've met two people who I'm going to hang out with more, and then I'm going to find even more queer people, and just kind of that, that excitement of finding community and almost that relief, because I know that when I was younger I just didn't, I assumed it was just me, and I couldn't find any queers in books or on TV or whatever. Now I feel like with the internet and phones and stuff, everyone, or a lot of young people are able to find themselves, I guess maybe more easily. I don't know, they have more access to stuff. But I still love that, idea of harnessing that kind of apprehension and enthusiasm and excitement that you feel finally meeting your community, where you're like, oh, is this it?
Yeah.
This is it.
It's starting to dawn on me what poems, instead of just rhyming, it's its expression and its fluidity in words, and like it is
Yes.
art therapy, like you said, and it kind of resonated with me there because I got it. I get look at me go.
Yeah, right? No, I love that. And I think that that's like often when people are like, oh yeah, I hate this piece of art or whatever. And I'm like, I mean, maybe it's just not for you. Like I read a lot of poetry and like play a lot of games where I'm like, this is not my vibe. Love that for you. Go off.
Yeah.
I'm out.
I mean, I love stuff like this that encapsulates a very specific part of queer life and the queer experience, because you're as a character, you go into the shops, you're like, oh, I'm going to this picnic, and what do I take, and am I going to be like there? And you get there,
The
and
orange juice is so heavy.
you find everyone's really different, but also there's the shared experience, and everyone's really cool and every friendly, and I think even as like gay men, that kind of spoke to us too, because I think sometimes when you go to a gay event, like there is a pressure to be a certain way and be a particular type of gay person. I don't know if you felt this, but we recently started going monthly to a group called the Melbourne Gamers, spelled GAYME. So it's a group up of tabletop and board games and video games. And we met the guys who run it, here on this podcast. But I remember the first time we went, we were just sort of like, oh, are we going to fit in? Like, are we, you know what I mean? Like, are we going to be okay? We got there and really welcoming, and we went and played werewolves and had the best time. So what's some of the other reactions that you've received to some of the interactive work that you've done?
Pretty positive, like, to be honest. I think a lot of people, like are enthusiastic about it, and like, there's also like a lot of lovely comments and like direct messages and stuff that I've received where people have been like, oh, this was really beautiful, and like, not necessarily like solved all their problems, but they were like, this was really beautiful and thank you. Or, oh, my favorite is when people are like, oh, this has inspired me to go, teach myself bitsy or whatever. And I'm like, good, amazing. I love that. So no, I think that the reactions have been really lovely. I think I've had some negative ones, but I just usually delete those comments. So.
I do that on our YouTube page all the time.
Yeah.
We had someone who jumped in and went on the attack because we interviewed someone called Mo last week who developed a game called Queer Quest, which was in the same festival as yours. And someone straight away, like, first comment, I was like, no, go away. Nice comments only, please.
Only praise. I will not have any criticism.
Exactly. Honestly, because like there's so many spaces where you can't curate that.
So I was interested to know, though, are you actually a gamer?
Look, yes, I love games. However, when I say I'm a gamer, I mean 80% of my time is taken up with Animal Crossing and all of the Animal Crossing games. That's, other games, a small amount of my life. Animal Crossing, by God, do I know that game? I wrote a zine about it. I've written like about 20 poems about Animal Crossing and Pokemon, various different Pokemon games. But
I love Pokemon.
Literally, like the guy who...
I'm like the biggest Pokemon shill in the whole world.
Oh, yeah, he made us do a whole episode about it recently when the Pokemon Presents happened.
Yeah, I was like, I'm steering the ship today. We're watching the Pokemon Direct.
I will literally send you, I wrote a poem called I Google Are Pokemon Edible and Wonder If I'm a Bad Person. And that's the whole title of the poem. And it's literally, it's basically that. So I will send it to you. It was published on Cordite, which was like a really lovely, amazing literary magazine. And they were like, yeah, we'll publish your Pokemon poem.
Yeah, please.
So that's, I will send that your way.
So
you've just become this man's hero.
I know. I'm totally impressed.
I was like, yes. Maybe this is like a gateway drug to writing
my God,
Pokemon
there you go.
poetry.
That can be my entry level, my gateway, my start out.
Are there have you got any other games that you might be working on? Or, because you said you do some game jams, and there is a lot of, you've got some zines and some other interactive content on your itch page. But is there anything else you might like, or even any ideas that you have that you'd like to work on?
Yeah, because it's one of those things where like often my games are motivated by game jams or by like, because the Queer Games bundle is going to be kicking off soon. So I'll often like write something or create something for that. This time, though, I think I'll do a zine. But I was thinking, like, I haven't done twine in a while. Like, I've done one twine that's on my itch page, and I'd like to kind of explore that more, because that is definitely like a medium that lends itself to storytelling, you know, very like heavily. And I kind of, I wouldn't mind doing another twine, and maybe one that has like more of a branching narrative rather than the kind of the one that I've got on my itch page, which is How to Haunt, which is like very, very linear once again. Yeah, it was very, but like, I think like, because I think that's the thing, is I work to often like game jam deadlines or something, like in quite a rush, which is why most of my games are like 5 minutes or less. Because of that. Whereas, like, you know, if I've got a deadline for a book, it's like it's a kind of a longer deadline. It's a different type of deadline, and often that will, like, I don't know, I guess because I know the outcome of that, and like I know, you know, that I will have a product at the end of the day, gross, to sell, capitalism, disgusting. But like, whereas with games, I'm like, this is like, there is, I guess, maybe even more like an element of play towards it, so I don't necessarily plan things in advance. It's often, here's a game jam about dogs. I like dogs. I'm going to make this thing. Does it in 3 hours. We're done. Like,
it's the beauty of a game jam, though.
Throw it on the shelf.
We did it. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I love a game jam. Like, it's very adrenaline. It's very good. We have like an open mic night here in Meanjin, where part of the night is writing a poem to a prompt in 5 minutes and then performing it. It's a drug. It's great. So that, but game jams, I love it. Like,
that's so cool. That's so cool. And what's the other game engine you mentioned there? It started with T. Twine. I think I've played there's quite a few Twine games, especially by queer developers, and it's interesting, right? You know, you've made these brief interactive poetry experiences in games, but so many of the queer games that I come across are often narrative experiences or interactive stories, sometimes with imagery, sometimes with not. And I wonder why it is that so many of us who are making games are choosing to do the story-based experience.
Yeah, it's almost like my first reaction is just like, we haven't had a chance to tell our stories yet. Therefore, we've got to tell it in a certain way. And I feel like a lot of the time I have very succinct types of choice that people can make in the game or whatever, because I kind of want to keep the experience contained and kind of don't want anything to be misconstrued, which is like, that was my first gut reaction, was just like, because I'm telling this story and I'm like, calm down.
There's been a lot more, you know, genuine queer stories told through TV and film in the last 10 or 20 years, but especially when it's a big Hollywood production or something, there's always something a little dramatized about it, or something that's just like, you're playing into a cliche here, whereas more genuine and authentic stories told by real queer people in this kind of creative space seems to be, I don't know, even when it's only like short and sharp, you get a little bit more out of it. You're like, no, that's,
you can like taste the authenticity, like when you play it though, or like experience it.
Yes.
Like you can, because even just to use an example of Queer Picnic, I was like, I can see myself in that. That is relatable. It's not just it's like a straight cisgender person being like, I know a gay person, I'll tell a story about them. Like, it's lived experience. It's like the warmth and all of like what it is to be queer. Whereas I think sometimes in media, it's a bit glamorized and a little bit sanitized. Whereas
you need a mass audience to make more money and all that stuff.
Whereas, as I said, like, it's something queer art experience is warts and all. Like, sometimes it's the ugly side, the awkward side, the side that you don't want to have to talk about. Like how you were mentioning about how in your game it was in stand up about like the dissonance between like gender identity and things like that. Straight people aren't going to write that. I'm going to write that. They don't know.
Nor are they going to get it.
Nor will they get it. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting.
It's a tough subject to bring up, but because you are taking it from a personal lens, it's aiding other people. And I saw all the comments under that game where people are like, oh, finally, like I can see myself being represented. I can see these things. And that's where like it circles back to one of the things I said before, where it must be great as an artist to realize that your art has impacted people. So
It's honestly wild, but it's also like part of me is like, I'm being perceived. What? Thank you and goodbye. Like, it is both humbling and horrifying in
course,
equal
yeah.
measure.
It is certainly very good though to see it emerging more, and as our show has moved more into this space with meeting people like yourself and some of the other queer devs that we've met in recent weeks, there's this real thriving underground scene in this space. And I like it. Like, I like that it's, you know what I mean? We're trying to showcase it a bit more, but I also kind of feel like it's going back to the days of like underground lesbian comic books and stuff like that. It's
yeah.
Yes.
It's a bit punk.
Well, I mean, that's right. Well, I mean, that's how zines started, was like, you know, zines, you know, were like very, I think they started even before, like in like the 1920s or something, but like probably even before that, who knows, like, you know, queer marginalized history being erased and all that. But like, yeah, you know, that kind of underground vibe, and those kind of, short, sharp games that are, you know, like, as we say, like, own voices is so key, because, you know, I feel like a lot of the time, as you said, like the sanitized version is the one that, is sort of is more marketable. And like, if you're just kind of playing around with Bitsy in your bedroom and having a nice time, you're not thinking about marketing. You're thinking about, you know, what do I want to say? How do I want to say it? And who's this for, kind of thing. But in like a, I don't know, very gay way.
Always make it gay. Always make it.
Always, I was like, it could always be gayer. Like,
and you've been dabbling in some other stuff recently. So I have another recently published item of yours right here. So for those listening to the audio podcast, this is All the Colors of the Rainbow, which is a picture book, which when I went to St Kilda Library and said, I would like this book, please, they said, oh, it's a children's book. You know that, right? I'm like, yes, I do know that. Thank you. I'm interviewing the author and I would like to borrow it, please. So tell us a little bit about All the Colors of the Rainbow. It's so cute.
It's so cute. That's so delightful. I would have been like, yes, and
I will tell you though, Rae, the person knew where it was because it had been read at story time that morning.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
Not joking. That she was like, oh no, we had that at story time this morning. I'll go. I know exactly where that is.
That's so cute.
Honestly, reading to kids has been one of the most delightful parts of the process of, like, you know, like with poetry readings, it's kind of, you know, like you're on a stage, it's happening, there's adults, it's great, there's lights. Whereas with kids, it's like, you know, one kid's crying, another kid's like, you know, throwing up in a corner or something. You've got 5 kids staring at you like this, like, my God, why have they got pink hair? And it's like, it's a whole new experience. No, honestly, kids are delightful. That's so beautiful. Oh my God. Yeah, it came about like, I wanted to write something for kids, and my brain was like, well, it's just kind of like a long poem, which it is, but like harder. It's more difficult, I think, to write for kids. And then, I sent like the book, like I kind of had an idea for the manuscript through, like, obviously, like, I went to Pride, I saw my beautiful friends and their rainbow families, and I went, oh. So it was definitely very, I was very inspired and was like, oh, I really want to, you know, to write for these, you know, beautiful friends who, you know, have now like all been able to buy the book for their kids, which is really sweet. But and then like once I sort of got the manuscript done, sent it to my agent, and she hooked me up with Sean Dantes, who is like this incredible illustrator, and we collaborated on the project together, and it's just beautiful. Like, she had the exact same vision as me, and now it's a book that, like, you know, there's bookshop windows have like the displays of it, and like it's in, you know, regular like QBD and Dymocks and stuff, and I'm like, what? I'm being perceived again. How?
And
They're
it sounds like
adorable.
kids are loving it though, because I can imagine, because it's always,
Yeah.
I think kids can surprise you so much if you put content like this in front of them,
Mhm.
they'll just get it. Because I think more and more kids
Yeah.
these days are breaking free of the whole, like, you know, boys must like cars and playing in the mud, and girls need to like Barbies and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's like, I want, you know, my Barbies in the mud and my cars in the mall. I don't know. But like, but honestly though, I do agree, and like I think like we didn't go with like having the word gender in the text at all. It was kind of all very metaphorical and like very, you know, giving, I guess, you know, kids like a coloring palette, like so that they could color their own rainbows, as it were, like rather than it being something where it was like, here's gender and here's what we think
Yeah.
about gender. So yeah, definitely like meeting them at their kind of level of like flexibility, and kind of, you know, their brains are still developing, and like giving them these, you know, ideas and concepts now is like really, you know, really helpful, I think. So, but yeah, kids are loving it. It's very sweet. Like I've met a lot of kids who get it gifted to them and just go, and like immediately put it in their mouth, which I assume is baby for
Yeah.
this is great.
Well, Ray, where can people continue to follow your journey? How
Mm.
can they continue to support you, see what else you've got going on?
I've always got 20 million things going on. My website is raywhite.net, and I've got all the social media pretty much, I think. And I've got, what else have I got? I've got an itch as well, as we've talked about. Yeah, honestly, most stuff is on my website. And if in doubt, yeah, I'm highly Googleable.
You do come up straight away.
Um,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. The real estate agent used to come up straight away, and now it's me. So I feel pretty.
We told ourselves we weren't going to make that
Yeah.
joke, so we're glad you did.
Yeah, you brought it up.
No, it's fine. I make it almost every. I make it almost every time you got up.
Oh, amazing. Well, we will include links to your content in the episode description, everyone. So
Yes.
please go and check out Ray's amazing itch content, or check out any of the two published poetry books, or the colors of the rainbow for the young people in your life.
Or if you just want like a really cute and pretty book, because that's kind of why I want it. I think I just can't get it to look at it.
Just like coffee table book. People are like, is that a kid's book? No, it's the coffee table book.
Put
I'm
it
an adult.
I'll put it next to my book of Lady Gaga. It'll be great. That'll complete my gay coffee table
Very good.
display.
I love
well,
it.
Rae, thank you so much for your time. It has been an absolute
you.
pleasure getting to know you. So thank you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Wow, I know.
Wasn't that amazing?
I'm in a good place right now.
Yeah, I'm in a good place as well.
Yeah.
I wish there was Pride on or something. I kind of want to go.
I know. I
Yeah,
just want to
scream.
just go and like, I was going to go run down the street with this Pride flag. That's all right. This street is full of lesbians.
I
I'll
was
get it.
gonna
No, that was really, really lovely to meet Rae, and such a different, unique experience for our show and podcast. And
fantastic perspective as well, like a fantastic perspective on like game making, fantastic perspective on like life and everything like that. Yeah, really fabulous.
Yeah, well, people have been arguing for years now that gaming is an art form, and Rae is someone who is truly showing how art can come through in games in all kinds of ways.
Yes, loved it.
Loved it.
Even if it didn't rhyme, it's fine.
Yeah. We've got more great content coming up over the next couple of weeks. This one's going to take a little bit of a break.
Yes, sorry everyone.
Yeah, you got stuff going
under the knife. I'm finally getting my mountain lion facelift, so watch out. That's how. No, I'm joking. I will be off for a couple of weeks, so we'll have some fabulous sit-in guests for the interim. I'm sure they're devilish and handsome, just as I.
They are.
And then I will be returning, so don't miss me too much.
Yeah. Next episode, we will have Dr. Xavier Ho from Monash University, who will be meeting in person. And I'll be joined by Jake and Warren from the Melbourne Gamers to help out with that. Coming up, we've got heaps of other really cool queer game devs and personalities Hey Girl, the Twitch streamer, gay Twitch streamer from Seattle in the US,
Mhm.
really, really popular, makes a whole living out of streaming games. We're going to catch up with Mischief Maker Games. Remember Burger Boys from PAX? God, Burger Boys! We're going to hear more about what's going on with Burger Boys.
Oh my
For
God, I can't
Knife
wait.
Games, are going to
Knife.
come back and give us an update on what's happening with
Oh my God,
Art School
yes.
Detective
Yay.
and with Small Town Emo. So it's all happening.
It's all happening.
We've also just recently started talking to a guy named Aaron who has developed a game called Straight?
Been there, girl.
And so, yeah, we're really looking forward to speaking to him as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, so stay tuned. Stay
Yeah.
tuned because there's a lot happening
A
here
lot
on Bargain
happening.
Bin Gamer.
A lot of high quality bargain bin
Yeah.
product.
Why are we doing this?
I don't know. I'm feeling it.
Anyway, until next time, I've been Davey.
And I've been Mitch.
And we've been
The Bargain Bin Gamers. Why do we always sing at the end?
I don't know. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you give it a big thumbs up on YouTube or follow the podcast wherever you get your podcast from and leave us a 5-star review. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky and follow along on our live Twitch streams. You can also continue the conversation in our BQN podcast Discord by clicking the link in the episode description. Don't forget that the Bargain Bin Gamer is part of a larger network of podcasts called the BQN. You can support this and other BQN programs by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/BQN. We'd love to hear your feedback on the episode. Leave us a comment on YouTube or send us an email to bargainbingamer, GAYMER, @gmail.com. Until next time, au revoir.
Double T Media.